Welcome to another video, and in this one we're going to be taking a look at a new mechanic in Path of Exile 2 that might be completely bonkers based on some of the skill gem combos that are possible, and that's Jagged Ground. I wanted to make a few videos looking at some of the mechanics you could utilise at the launch of Early Access, especially considering that we'll have no path of building and no real data to go off of in terms of builds. Now, Jagged Ground doesn't exist in PoE 1, it's a new ground effect, and baseline it seems to slow enemy movement speed. Jagged Ground is used as an effect that can be triggered by other skills to explode, dealing damage based on either the skill that created the Jagged Ground or the skill that caused it to explode based on the skill description. For example, Earthquake functions almost exactly the same as it did in PoE 1. The character performs an initial attack which then leaves a delayed aftershock that explodes for a lot more damage thereafter. But the big difference with Path of Exile 2 Earthquake is that the delayed aftershock damage is caused by Jagged Ground, which means it can interact directly with other skills. In the case of Earthquake, it grants 100% increased effect of Jagged Ground, improving the slow on enemies stuck in the effect. However, the interesting thing here is how exactly the increased effect modifier on Jagged Ground will affect the damage dealt by the explosion if it's triggered by another skill. For example, Shockwave Totem. In PoE 2 this skill is an attack instead of a spell, and it has its own base damage instead of using your weapon. Shockwave Totem is a slam skill, and the slam would explode Earthquake's Jagged Ground if it procs in its area of effect. Now, that's one combo that can be used to essentially speed up the initial proc on Earthquake's aftershock. A well-timed Earthquake right before Shockwave Totem triggers its attack will immediately explode the aftershock and also hit with the Shockwave Totem slam itself, dealing 2 hits of AoE damage. But Jagged Ground doesn't stop there. In fact, there's a lot more interactions in just the few skills we've already seen glimpses of. Jagged Ground support can be linked to any slam skill to make its hits create Jagged Ground on impact. This version of Jagged Ground applies 30% less movement speed and has a larger area of effect. This is where things start to get quite interesting because you can use any slam skill to create Jagged Ground. Meanwhile, Stampede, another slam skill, not only creates more Jagged Ground as it moves forward during the animation, but it also explodes all patches of Jagged Ground at the end of the slam. Also, something else to take note of in this skill's description is the wording of creating many patches of Jagged Ground, which would imply that they can stack on top of each other. This may be skill specific, but it's also possible that Jagged Ground from multiple sources can stack, and if that's the case, utilizing this mechanic is likely to be really powerful. There's also Ancestral Warrior Totem, which, similar to Shockwave Totem, performs an attack with its own base damage. It doesn't use your weapon. But the crazy thing about this skill is that the totem uses a socketed slam skill, similar to Earthbreaker in PoE 1. This means you can use Ancestral Warrior Totem to either create a bunch of Jagged Ground using a slam linked to Jagged Ground support, or use the totem to explode other Jagged Ground you created using Stampede. Even crazier, you can have 2 of these totems with limit support, leaving you free to create as much Jagged Ground as possible with other skills. Or it may be better to have 2 Ancestral Warrior Totems that both use Earthquake, as we know that Earthquake used by totems in PoE 1 are unique instances per totem, allowing you to bypass the limit of a single aftershock queued at a time. Using 2 Earthquake Totems would allow you to constantly explode the Jagged Grounds they create using Stampede on your character, which seems really strong considering the totems have a base attack time that's much faster than the proc rate of Shockwave Totems, even with Earthquake's attack speed multiplier factored in. Keep in mind that this is only the skills and support gems we've seen so far. There's likely to be more interactions with Jagged Ground in the game, maybe from other skills, or on ascendancies, or even the passive skill tree. But with just what we've seen, I feel that this mechanic will be very strong if the numbers stay as they are. And this will likely be a great option to start with on Early Access launch on the Warrior if you're looking for some melee gameplay. Jagged Ground stacking might just be a little bit busted. I just wanted to make a video on that today as I didn't see many people talking about it and it seems very strong. but we haven't got too long until we find out for sure. We're about 3 weeks out from the launch of Path of Exile 2, and we'll probably have a live stream date announcement coming soon, surely by the end of this week, as I expect the stream will be on the 28th, but may still be on the 21st, we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching this video, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.